I call on private and local order of the day, number 1.
Manukau City Council Regulation of Prostitution in Specified Places Bill, second reading.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Annette King.
Mr. Speaker, I move on behalf of Sue Williams CO that the Manukau City Council Regulation of Prostitution in Specified Places Bill be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill has a long history, a very, very long gestation indeed. On the 22nd of November 2005, the former Member of Parliament for Manukau, the Honourable George Hawkins, introduced the first of these bills. It was the Manukau City Council Control of Street Prostitution Bill. It was introduced in the 48th Parliament. The bill provided for local control over street prostitution in Manukau City. On the 7th of December 2005, it was referred to the Local Government and Environment Select Committee. At the time of its introduction, the Honourable George Hawkins outlined what he said were the local problems relating to street prostitution in the areas of Hunters Corner, Papatoetoe, the Otara Town Centre and the Great South Road, Manukau. And they were concerned as a local bill and a local council of the growing number of sex workers soliciting on the street. It was not a bill, and never was, a bill about the legality of prostitution. That bill had been passed some time earlier. So it had nothing to do with whether or not the legalisation of prostitution or decriminalisation of prostitution in New Zealand. So from 2005 till now, 10 years on, we are debating today this reading of a second bill to deal with this issue. I need to tell those who are listening, so much time has gone into this issue, probably more time at a select committee on a local bill than any time in the history of this Parliament. We have had report after report. We've had evidence backwards and forwards, legal opinions given, the evidence of that legal opinion given and another legal opinion given. And in the meantime, throughout this, the Manukau City Council disappeared altogether and was replaced by a super city. The first select committee report on the first bill recommended that the bill not proceed, that it was voted down at the second reading. It was voted down on the grounds that having a local law different from national law in respect to prostitution was unworkable. 7 members of that original committee have now left this House. Those left are Peter Pirioni, the Honourable Nick Smith and Materia Ture. Then, on the 11th of October 2006, we had that second reading. It was voted down by 46 votes to 73. But I have to tell the House it didn't defer the Honourable George Hawkins. He came back with another local bill, the Manukau City Council Regulation of Prostitution in Specified Places Bill, and on the 20th of August 2010, now the 49th Parliament, this bill was introduced. This bill authorised the Council, and I read, to make bylaws specifying places in the district where the business of prostitution or commercial sexual services may not occur otherwise in a brothel or a small owner-operated brothel. This bill went back to the Local Government and Environment Select Committee. In 2011 election, George Hawkins retired, and the bill was then picked up by the former member of Manukau, Ross Robertson, in the 50th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I sat on the Local Government and Environment Committee for 2 years, and I need to tell members of this House we gave this bill serious consideration. Once again, we heard evidence, we re-heard evidence, we sought advice, legal and from the Auckland City Council. By the end of 2014, before the election, the committee had come to the conclusion the bill was not needed. That was the conclusion of the committee. We had looked at the evidence. That was the decision. And it was the decision for the following two reasons. Auckland City, we were told by all the opinions we got, could already make a bylaw. They did not need this House to make a bylaw for them. They could make a bylaw to control street prostitution. You did not need to waste the time of this Parliament making a bylaw. The second reason was, we knew and heard lining up behind the Auckland City were a whole lot of councils wanting their bylaw. So we could, in theory, have up to 70 councils coming wanting their particular bylaw around street prostitution. So we said that this was a nonsense. We could not have a whole lot of local bills clogging up this Parliament when there was the ability for Auckland City to make a bylaw, and they ought to get on with it. Certainly Christchurch was one of the first that were lining up, but there were others around New Zealand. So unfortunately the bill was not concluded before the House rose for the last election. So finally we get to the 51st Parliament, and this bill, now in its 4th Parliament, has reached this point today. And Mr. Speaker, we think it's time to stop 10 years of Parliament's time and money and say to the Auckland City Council, pass a bylaw because you can. If that's what Auckland wants to do, just get on with the job. The Select Committee recommends that this bill not be passed, and we conclude this bill here at the second reading, as we did with the first bill that the Honourable George Hawkins introduced way back in 2005. Can I just say in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committees that have worked on this bill and say to the people of Auckland and the councils that have been involved, it was taken very seriously. We looked at all the issues. We believe that we've come up with the right solution. Also, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the members, the 3 members who have promoted this bill, as good members would, a local bill, George Hawkins, Ross Robertson and Sue Williams-Seo, who have faithfully brought this bill and argued it for their local community. And I know that they will be disappointed that it has not proceeded, but they also understand and know that Auckland City can go ahead tomorrow if they wish and prepare a bylaw for this. And in fact, Hamilton was one of those that had. And so we know that it's possible. And in fact, some of those that were in the that have joined the Super City had already created their own bylaws. So, Mr. Speaker, I say to those members who may be, former members who may be missing, thank you for your hard work, but this is going to hopefully be the end of this bill and the end of this time of Parliament dealing with it.
Mr. Speaker. Scott Simpson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.